So, when it comes to the Mattel toy line, they have various different size ranges and various different types of figures. They have the Danger Packs, which are usually pretty solid. They have the Strike Attacks, which are pretty hit or miss, I do have to say. Sometimes they're absolutely fantastic, sometimes they're just fine. We have the Wild Roars, which are consistently pretty solid. We have the Gigantic Thrashers, which are usually my actual favorites. I honestly really love Gigantic Thrashers. We're going to talk about them right now. I think they're always pretty good. I think the first wave's pretty solid. I think the first wave is usually pretty hit or miss. They're usually pretty decent. And then the second wave are usually fantastic. Something really unique. And just, I don't know, Gigantic Thrashers just are really cool. I know they haven't been called Gigantic Thrashers throughout all the years, but I know that that's what they're currently being called, so that's what I'm going to refer to them as. But Gigantic Thrashers, always loved them. I thought they were a good size, always had good creatures. We only ever got 4 of them, and so honestly, it's really important which creatures they picked, because again, we're only getting 4 of them per year. And honestly, we usually get carnivore, a herbivore, and a marine reptile or a semi-aquatic animal. Those are probably my favorites of them all. Carnivores are also pretty solid, and herbivores are also really nice to get a nice, large, bulky herbivore. And with a new lineup coming out, the Jurassic Survival line, we got more Gigantic Thrashers, and these are probably some of the worst Gigantic Thrashers and possibly even the worst size range of the Jurassic Survival figures. We have Stegosaurus, which is honestly not bad. It's pretty solid, actually. It does have a few issues, but it's honestly not that bad. Probably about what I expect for most of Gigantic Thrasher figures. This is kind of about the same quality as most Wave 1 Gigantic Thrasher herbivores. Nothing super spectacular, but nothing super horrible either. Then we have Gorgosaurus, which is a atrocity and a crime against humanity. They slapped a bunch of armor on a really good Gorgosaurus. This was an easy slam dunk. Gorgosaurus is a popular species. All they had to do was, well, make a Gorgosaurus figure. It's that simple. They could have saved money by not making the action feature too complex and gave it a good paint scheme. That's all they need to do. Gorgosaurus is a really popular animal and really beloved. All they had to do was make a simple Gorgosaurus. Easy task, right? No, they fumbled that somehow. Torvosaurus, we don't know what it looks like. I have concept for it in my Pleurodon, but Torvosaurus, again, similar thing to Gorgo. Just give it a simple action feature and give it a nice color scheme. That's all you need for these species. I can understand when they do absurd crap to dinosaurs that are less popular, though it's still inexcusable. At least I can see where they're coming from, but with fan favorites, all you have to do is do it right. That is honestly all you need to do. But based on the description we have for Torvosaurus, it isn't looking too good for it. And then Pleurodon, which I didn't know exactly how this is going to come out, but that may not matter. We'll get to that in a second. Yeah, sorry about that, Pleurodon. Anyways, a new listing came up on Walmart.com, which is pretty interesting. It's for a new Gigantic Thrasher. Would be really cool, you may be thinking. But unfortunately, it keeps up the trend of being absolutely horrible. Here's the listing. Yes. Titanosaurus. That Titanosaurus. Burn it with fire, absolutely annihilate every atom in this thing's hideous body, and make sure it never graces the earth again. That is my thought when I heard that they were making a juvenile Titanosaurus figure as like a Gigantic Thrasher. Absolutely despise this detestable creature. But then, I thought about it. What if it's not going to be a horrid monstrosity that should be burned immediately? What if it's actually good? Just think about it for a second. Of course, I was just thinking it was just going to be a shrunken down version of that hideous creature that needs to burn, but then I thought about it for a second. Maybe, since again the Jurassic Survival line, the whole thing about them is that they're redesigning creatures, and Titanosaurus already had a figure and they're making a juvenile one, what if they're making an actual Titanosaurus? You may be saying, what the heck am I talking about? You just heard me like rant and go crazy a second, you already think I'm insane. But what I'm talking about is that, if you didn't know, the Rebirth Titanosaurus is anything but a Titanosaurus. Again, it's a horrible monster that needs to be demolished and destroyed. Again, Titanosaurus is actually a dubious genus because it's known from such fragmentary remains, so it likely does not exist. Well, I mean, there's a little bit more into it, but honestly, just to kind of make it simple, it doesn't exist. It is also a very small sauropod. In fact, I'd say it's one of the smaller sauropods. With some estimates, I think estimates are usually putting it between 13 and 15 tons, which is smaller than Shantungosaurus. Shantungosaurus is the largest land animal outside of sauropods, and even then, I think things like Apatosaurus, which is the smallest sauropod in the franchise of the Jurassic franchise, is technically is actually quite a bit larger than real-life Titanosaurus. Titanosaurus is minuscule, which is why it baffles me why they picked that creature to be in Rebirth when it doesn't exist and it's nowhere near fitting in the role that they actually need it to be in. But then on top of that, the design is hideous, so yeah. But what if here they're actually doing it right? Of course, the dubious thing can't really be fixed, but I can kind of look over that if everything else is done well. What if this figure is going to be redesigned to look like an actual Titanosaurus? Again, it's not going to be hideous, it's going to actually look like Titanosaurus as well. It's going to be proper size, because again, Titanosaurus is pretty small for a sauropod. So what if they made an actual good Titanosaur? Heck, they like slapping armor and spikes on all the things in the Jurassic World survival line, despite they don't need it. Titanosaurus is a Titanosaur, and Titanosaurs actually had armor. So what if they add some spikes and like osteoderms on its back, or even just do spikes? Honestly, could be really nice. They have a nice Titanosaur figure. Who knows? Who knows what color scheme they could have gone with for this creature? Honestly, there's a plethora of things. But that had me thinking, maybe Titanosaurs won't be a horde creature and actually be something worthwhile. Honestly, again, this is going two ways. If it looks like the Rebirth design, then immediately this thing needs to be demolished and destroyed. It's horrible. But if it looks like an actual Titanosaurus, then this might actually be a good gigantic Thrasher figure. Another thing that's interesting, you may be wondering, as I said earlier, we only get 4 gigantic Thrasher figures per year, and we already had our 4. Well, interestingly, this Titanosaurus listing actually is the Lioplorodon listing. If you go to the Lioplorodon listing, I actually have it bookmarked, so when I went to it, I realized this as well. But, yeah, Titanosaurus actually is replacing Lioplorodon, possibly, because, again, the listing has Titanosaurus, and if you go down to the description, it still has the same old description for Lioplorodon, except switch with the words Juvenile Titanosaurus. Again, that could be definitely very interesting. That, again, instead of getting Lioplorodon, we're now getting Titanosaurus, or at least Juvenile Titanosaurus, whatever you want to call it. And, yeah, this is just kind of weird. I know I actually really like getting marine reptiles, and usually I would be really mad, but Lioplorodon we already have, and also this is out of scale for Lioplorodon, so I found it weird that they were making this, but replacing with Juvenile Titanosaurus and possibly making it an actual Titanosaurus could be really good. So, yeah, again, I'm kind of curious, because again, we first thought Titanosaurus was going to be the gigantic Thrasher, then Lioplorodon, and now Titanosaurus, at least Juvenile Titanosaurus, so, yeah. Who knows? I'm really hoping that this thing has a redesign, because this could actually be a good survival figure. So, yeah, this could either be the worst Jurassic World survival figure or an actual good one. Heck, if this thing actually is a good figure, I'll probably get it and just have this be a Titanosaurus, since, well, it would actually be a Titanosaurus. It would be wild if the survival line actually took a creature and made it look like its actual counterpart more than just, like, again, they did the same with Dimorphodon, but I mean, like, actually take something that's physically not in the slightest and make it into what it actually is. They've done the reverse with Gorgosaurus and Spectrobinator, so kind of interesting. Anyways, Gorgosaurus is just, I mean, not Gorgosaurus, Titanosaurus. This thing, I am either going to love it, because it will be actually redeeming this creature, or it will be the worst thing ever. Anyways, I guess it's only a matter of time till we find out, or if it will get replaced with something else, because who knows. What are your guys' thoughts on this new revealed Titanosaurus figure, or Juvenile Titanosaurus? I'm going to call it Titanosaurus, since it's actually a Titanosaurus, hopefully, instead of whatever it is. Anyways, sorry I had to clickbait you guys a little bit, because honestly, I just had, like, kind of was actually raging out about this thing earlier, and then thought about it for a second, and was like, wait a minute, this could actually be a Titanosaurus figure, so. And they could just be putting it as a Juvenile Titanosaurus to get around things, or just as a alternate release for it. So yeah. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. What's your thoughts on this thing? If it's good, then I actually will like this guy, and if it's bad, then we're gonna have an issue. Anyways, see you guys in the next one, and goodbye.